Hello, Jesper.
Hey man,
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Yeah, I'm all right, all right. Sorry, I missed your
Perfect.
call. I don't know why it's not ringing anymore on Skype, but here we are.
Well, it's okay. No problem. I was the guy who's 20 minutes late, so
Don't worry, I was just. I know how it is. Like when you are working in your own company, like you have a million things to do at the same time. So no worries.
yes, yes, yes. I'm trying the best I can to work my way around everything.
Yeah, yeah, I guess, but yeah. Especially on Friday afternoon when you have to close everything before going home for the weekend. But there is
Yeah,
no weekend actually. But yeah, I see. Well,
fantastic.
all right. Well, thanks for being available for this chat.
No problem.
Um, so it's great that you are coming to Paris. I'm actually not based in Paris, so I won't be able to come and attend the conference. But interesting event that is. Radio this radio conference, like this radio show, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, but you didn't know it?
No, actually, I've never heard of it, but it's maybe because I was not necessarily involved in areas that were linked to radio. I don't know, but no, I discovered it when you talked about
Like I didn't know of it either, so
it.
but yeah, they just sent me an email like I think 2 weeks ago asking if I could attend, and there was a little at the same time.
Okay.
Um, okay, I just had something with the sound, so everything I said was replied, or but now
Yeah,
it works again.
I had some weird stuff happening too, but it's good now.
Okay, awesome.
So just so I know, how much time do you have in front of you?
Like half an hour or something, if that's needed.
Okay, all right, perfect. Well, yeah, it should be it should fit in half an hour, or we'll make it fit anyway.
Yeah.
And
No stress.
just to let you know, I'm going to record this conversation. The main
Mm.
purpose is just for me to be able to focus on what we are discussing and not like
Yeah.
write down everything you're saying and so on. So it's really better for me. And also because I'm currently launching a podcast about like people who want to create a better music industry, kind of,
Yeah.
and so I may use it. To be honest, I don't know if
Yeah.
I will be able because of the English French aspect, but I'll find a way.
Mm.
So in any way, I need to record it just for my own note management, kind of.
Sure. Sure.
All right. So yeah, so thanks again for being available. So I'm just going to give a little bit of intro in case I use that for the podcast. So you are
Mm.
the co-founder of WARM, so World Airplay Radio Monitor. So the first and I guess the only so far large-scale radio monitor. And so it's a tool that allows users to track the airplay of the songs on radio stations around the world in real time. And you are now tracking 23,000 radio stations and
Yeah.
a lot of different cities. So if you can just like give me an overview of what the product is doing, like
Mm.
what's the benefits?
Yeah. Yeah. So just like a little big intro. I work with. I have a background in music management and work with different Scandinavian bands.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I found out that even though with a specific band, we were signed to a major in Denmark, so therefore they were more or less only focused on the Danish market. But I found out that we had actually a lot of airplays in a very cool radio station in Poland.
Okay.
So I presented the idea to the major that we wanted to do something there, but they were not really interested. And so basically I just did it myself. So I took contact to the radio station and I sent them the new single, worked with them around basically the information I had that we had the airplays.
Okay.
So when that was finished, I got like this aha experience where I was like, well, if everyone could have this kind of information of radio airplays in real time, that would mean like the whole do-it-yourself segment would have a whole new data set, which could be used for a lot of things, from everything from trying to actually control your royalties. That's more from the historical perspective of the airplays, but at least also for the information, the real-time information, so that you can actually optimize your radio plugging or control an external radio promoter. You can distribute the information to your booking agent or your label, or the manager could do so. So basically, I just saw a lot of value in this new kind of data set. So from there, that's like 4 years ago, and from there I've just been working on this plan, and I made a collaboration with a German company called Bach Technology, which had developed this algorithm that could actually do this. So that helped me a lot, so I didn't have to try and invent this the whole backend part myself.
The whole technical part.
Yeah. So basically now we're up and running. We launched in April 2017. So yeah, about 8 months or so, and we have a lot of customers right now from all kinds of the industry, both radio promoters like PR agencies and managers and artists, bands, labels. We just got our first major signed on a couple of days ago. So yeah, nice. It's like the data and the platform is being spread out, and I think it seems like more and more people are adopting it. So
yeah, okay, great. So this is actually one of the questions I had. Like, so your main customers, they are the artists and the labels that track a song, but you mentioned like also radio stations can also work with your product. So for example, on their side, how do they use it?
Yeah, well, so right now, the main idea for me was to not to sound like too much of a Robin Hood or something, but my idea was to help the industry. I found it ridiculous that the musicians or even small labels or whatever couldn't monitor their radio airplays. They can collect Spotify data, and they can collect, like, there's lots of different services, and not only from the aggregators or the streaming platforms themselves, but there's a lot of other services that cater for this data sets. But the radio is kind of probably the hardest data to get, especially as we both are doing FM, like terrestrial data, as well as online and DAB digital radio. So
okay.
So yeah.
Okay, yeah, because radio, it has a lot of it covers a lot of different platforms and formats now, because of we can almost argue that playlists are becoming kind of radios, even though there is no introduction of the songs or anything. But it's so you managed to track all these different formats as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And but the idea was to make it so that it was available for everyone, and we could only do that by making it so affordable as possible, and we did that by selling it per track per month. So we'll definitely also make some new subscription models, as we see other clients who, for example, the PR agencies, they would rather buy a 3-month solution, because that's when the campaign usually is for. So as well as labels, they often ask for bulk uploads, whether it's 5, 10 or 25 songs. So that's definitely something we will adopt on our next sprints.
Okay. And so in your role regarding the artist, for example, once an artist or a label discovered that their song is, like you, for example, that their song is played in Poland, do you also help them get paid in compensation of this airplay, or then it's just you provide them the info and then they have to then contact whoever they need to contact to act on that?
Yeah, so this is obviously a very interesting point in the industry in general, but unfortunately, it's not really something I can solve because the way this is set up by the PROs in the different countries are so intransparent and so individually based on local rules. So basically, I can't do that on behalf of them because I don't know the different rules in the local territories. For example, in Denmark, it's a good example because we actually believe that the Danish organizations are doing a pretty good job compared to other organizations. But at the same time, I know they have a hard time collecting money from foreign countries because in a lot of ways, these organizations does not really work very well together across the borders. For example, the Scandinavian organizations are probably working very well, but let's say the organization in Denmark is trying to collect money from Greece or Italy or France or something, it can easily be very, very difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And the other way around. So this is an area that we are very interested in, but at the moment we're not focused around that because I actually think that as a right now product, I think the value of the industry to know what's going on with your music in real time has probably more value right now than trying to see how you can collect a lot of money. But at the same time, yes, you can use it as an evidence towards your PRO, for example, and you say, listen, I've been played this amount of money times on Radio Istanbul in Turkey, and we haven't received any money, and that's basically something that could work. But if it's like a very, very small station or even a medium-sized station in different countries, it could be very difficult.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I guess.
And the next thing would be we don't have the same rules in the US as in the EU compared to the publishing and the recording side of it. So, or at least in terms of the recording side on radio stations. So, yeah, that was a long answer, but it's something that we are very interested in, but I'm not sure it's something we should focus a lot of time and energy in right now.
Yeah, it's a big piece. It's probably the one aspect of the industry that is not really tackled yet because it's such a nightmare for everyone. But I get your point. And so
but luckily there are some new directions and new regulations in the EU, so it looks like it will be much easier to do like an independent PRO for that matter. But yeah, it's not something that we're fully focused on right now.
Sure. And so do you have any competition, like maybe not direct, but for example, there is a French startup called Soundcharts. I'm sure you've heard of them. They don't do only radio, but they do track Airplay as well. So how do you see the landscape with all these different services?
Basically, we're so fortunate that we are using a technology significantly more developed and easier to expand in terms of coverage, etc., than our competitors.
Okay.
So, for example, Soundcharts, they collect a lot of information and a lot of data sets from different sources and also radio. But I think the last time I saw, they covered around 200 or 300 radio stations.
Yeah, okay.
And we have 25,000 stations at the moment. So we're probably expanding with 1,000 stations a month at the moment. So, and I know for a fact that it would be very difficult and expensive for them to do something similar to ours. So I'm not so afraid of competition at the moment. Same goes for Radio Monitor, BMAT, or other services like that. But they only focus around large stations, and they only focus on selling this data to big organizations and music companies, and that's basically the opposite of what we're doing. Like we can sell API implementations and integrations with other companies, but at the moment, like our core focus is to sell this to the long tail of the music industry. I think that's much more relevant.
Okay, so your main focus, like in terms of clients, is they are the long tail artists and not necessarily like the big shots that are everywhere on the radio station.
Yeah, we're not targeting any like big musicians or bands or anything like that.
Okay.
Not that they're obviously welcome to use it,
but, of course.
but I really think it's interesting, like these, let's call them 95% of the industry, or within bands or artists, for example, compared to Spotify, these 95% which have to share the 5% revenue, and not the top 5% who shares the 95% revenue. Like, I think the long tail of the industry could really need this a product like this to be able to do more better PR actually.
Okay.
And marketing.
And when you launched the first version of WARM, like what was the market answer? Like how did you felt the market was responding to the idea and to the product? Was it easy to convince radio stations to be tracked and artists to use it?
Well, first and foremost, we don't ask permission to track any radio stations to begin with. So like I don't have like a really clear view whether the radio stations like this or not. That's something we are going to work a lot more with, as we have a new product we are looking into establishing during 2018. But at the moment, I'm much more focused on our users, how they liked it and what they would like, in terms of new implementation and features.
Okay. And so these users, so the long tail artists, because they are not going to focus necessarily only on collecting royalty, because as you mentioned, it might not be that much money. So how can they use it, the service, like you mentioning, to plan tours and to optimize social media? Like, do you have examples of
Yeah, exactly. Like for example, if you just collect your data from Spotify and you look at that and say, okay, so my top 5 countries or cities or whatever is Mexico, London, and whatever. I don't think you will get like a clear view of your actual potential emerging markets or your potential fans, because you could be number 1 in Mexico because a Spotify algorithm has added your song to a
top playlist,
playlist, which has a lot of listeners in Mexico, and Mexico has I don't know how many million people. So that I don't think that would necessarily help you that much. Also, you have to see the fact that Spotify is not necessarily the number 1 streaming services in all countries. So as in France, they use Deezer, and in a lot of places in the US they still use Apple and they use Tidal, and in China it's completely different. So I think like the radio format is very interesting because it's still the same basically, even though it could be terrestrial one place and online another place, but it's the same format. And another thing that's important is that it's people. Obviously there are some regulations and how to say bureaucracy, regards to the very large stations. But in terms of everyone else stations, like small or medium or college radios or local stations or anything in between, it's music lovers. It's basically also music fans who adds new music because they like it and not necessarily just playing top 40 hits like many of the large station does. So I think, like, for example, a case I use often is, let's say you're an Icelandic indie band and a college radio in Wisconsin is playing your music. That's like a really, really specific target group and area. It's, not just a city or a country, but it's like a specific campus, a college in one specific city with very specific how to say, demography of listeners. So that could be people within, I don't know how old you are when you're in college, but let's say you're 22 to, I don't know, 28 or something.
Yeah.
So that's like a very, very specific target group where you mainly just need to get connection with the radio host.
Yeah, okay.
And if the radio host already played your music, he probably likes you.
Yeah,
so if you as a band, you sent him an email and he recognized the email that he just played the track, there's no reason for him not to connect with you. And that's basically what I did, in the Polish story.
Yeah.
And that's basically what everyone can do now. So our next stage would be, how can we make this easier? Another thing is, like, for example, on Spotify, that's a good similarity, but they see music as global. So in reality, when it's uploaded to a streaming service, people don't care whether the streams are from this and this and this country or city. And again, the same with radio. So when you are about to do radio promotion, why would you hire a radio promoter in Germany, for example, and pay him 2,000-3,000 euro for a campaign, which will be sent out to 1,000 radio stations in Germany? Like, maybe there's only 70 stations in Germany that actually matches your genre. So in that extent, maybe it would make more sense to actually be able to send your radio promotion to radio stations where it's based on the genre or the song profile, anywhere in the world, and not necessarily just focusing on one specific country because you want to, get through in that country. Like everyone else wants to get through in Germany. So that also means there's a very high competition.
Yeah.
But let's say you did rock music and you were based in, I don't know, UK or whatever. There's a lot of rock music is very, very popular, for example, in Eastern Europe and especially also in the south of Europe. So why wouldn't you try and see if you have any emerging markets, or you can penetrate, something in those regions instead of trying to get through in the UK market, where there's a lot more competition. So that's kind of some of the ideas that we're working on. How could we make this easier?
Okay, and so that's the plugging system that you are coming to present in Paris. That's the
that's the idea anyway. That we want to build an AI-driven software which can connect radio stations with music based on genre detection and song profiling. But it's obviously a very complicated backend that we need to do, but we're actually very far with it already. We already have established the genre detection on all stations on an hourly basis. So it's more for us to figuring out how can we measure when a song is being sent that the station also actually played it, and we know that we already are doing that basically. So it's just to connect the dots and complete the backend so we can test it in a beta version. And then obviously we need to talk with a lot of radio stations to figure out how they would like a system like this, because even though my idea is to build this for the long tail of the industry. If the radio station doesn't want to use a system like this, then it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, at the moment we're trying a very, very early soft version where, people who have registered yearly subscriptions get access to a mailing list of different radio stations on the platform. This will be probably launched here later today or on Monday. And then, basically people have access to a list of radio stations in different countries. And then we'll build from there and figure out how people react to that.
Yeah, and how to build it up and make something easy to use. Okay, great. And so how do you feel? Because there are a lot of talks about streaming has killed the radio, but before that we said like video has killed the radio and so on. And from your point of view, like you are depending quite a lot on the success of radio, basically. So how do you feel this media is performing now? Like what kind of evolutions do you anticipate? What's your opinion?
Well, obviously, I know that a lot of large radio stations are suffering because they have, had some very good days early on, and the adverts money was much higher before streaming and blah blah blah. But in the end, I can just say, like, according to the UNESCO report, 94% of the world's population listen to radio during a week.
Yeah.
So that would equal to around, 6.5 billion people.
So that's quite a lot.
That's at least better numbers than probably all the streaming platforms and YouTube combined. So
yeah.
But like, obviously we will see, a trend shift in this field. I think more stations. I think that digital radio, like what we call the DAB in Scandinavia, will be much more spread. I think that will probably be the new format to be used. It will allow, everyone to listen to the same station anywhere, and they don't have to take into consideration of internet or for that matter online FM frequency and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that is probably something we will see more of. Norway just turned completely digital with DAB 1st of January, and I think that will just basically continue, and that would also mean that a lot of new organizations and companies will have better access to actually establishing a radio, because it will be cheaper and much more easy to basically handle. So I think you would see companies and probably influencers, bloggers for that matter. It could be NGOs, organizations. Yeah, I think we will see more of them doing radio, and then probably there will be more talk radio, I presume, as well. But in reality, it's very individual. So I think it's the radio culture is probably individual in each and every single country. So I don't think that radio is going anywhere, but we'll probably see a change of how radio is being used, I think.
Yeah, maybe the radio will reinforce its role as a kind of a music discoverer, like not playing only the big shots, but also like doing more curation and without any algorithm actually, and trying to push.
It's personalized. All the radio stations basically, whereas all the alternative streaming services, etc., we will exactly just see much more of these automated and auto-generated playlists, and so perhaps you're right.
Yeah, maybe. Well, we'll see. No way to tell. And just I was thinking that podcasts are also growing quite a lot, but it's on demand, so it's probably not always I don't know if you can track podcasts like radio shows as podcasts as easily as you can track them in your tool. Like, how do you feel about that kind of medium as well?
That's also very interesting. Well, if like as we track you know, the music, that's what we're focused on. That's kind of the key here for us. So if a radio show is being broadcasted, whether it's a podcast or not, we will track it if they play music. But we don't track, you know, podcasts as per se, and that's probably not what we will be focusing on. Sure. I would imagine, you know, the new areas we would look into in terms of collecting data would be first and foremost to expand our coverage of radio stations as much as possible. Where we are lacking right now is probably Central Africa and some Asian countries, and I think Greenland. But other than that, we're well established in most of other countries.
Great.
And then the next will probably be to add the TV monitoring and YouTube monitoring.
YouTube monitoring will be a big shot as well. A lot of artists are going to be happy about that.
Yeah, but again, like TV monitoring is also funny, but it's not like, you know, it's not really for the long tail of the industry, because it's not that many from that area who has music on TV compared to how many actually has radio airplays.
Yeah, it's true. Like TV focuses mostly on the main, like big acts and.
But it's very interesting area as well.
Sure.
But I think there's like I think there is a little bit of I discovered there is a little bit of a problem in terms of expanding WARM, because I've learned that actually a lot of people in the industry thinks that someone is tracking their radio airplays.
Okay.
So it's like some people think that it's their organization, you know, PRO or CVO, and other people think that their label is doing it, and well, I'm signed to a major, so you know everything is in control.
Must be,
like they don't use services like this, so you know that is simply wrong. And for example, BMAT and Radio Monitor, which has probably around 3,000 stations each, you know, any individual artist can have like the coverage of 25,000. That's like 500% or more than any major label has, or all the majors combined for that matter. So I think it's very interesting area, but also I think something that we need to take some kind of responsibility into, that actually explains to people that, you know, probably your label is not monitoring this. If you ask them about a report on your radio airplays, I don't think you can get that. Maybe you can get it, but then it would be like from a local territory or something, and it will probably only be primarily large stations. And that's where the problem is, because if you are an upcoming band, you don't have airplays on the, you know, the big national radio, but you could have a lot of airplays on smaller stations, and not necessarily even in your country. But if you don't know that, you have no way of knowing it.
Yeah, it's true.
Or finding out.
So you have a lot of education and communication to do towards the artists, like the up and coming artists or the small ones, to let them know.
Yeah, that's definitely something we will do our best to work with, because I think that's obviously very important.
Sure. And just maybe a few questions before we finish, but so you've been recently selected by Musical Eye as one of the startups to watch in 2018. You've won the Slush Music 20 pitching competition last November, so congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
So like things seems to look very good for you. Like, why do you think you have such a good response from all these music industry experts? Kind of like, what do you think is the main point that they like?
I think that we have taken we've taken something that a lot of people didn't understand or knew was possible, I think.
Okay.
So we actually just brought a whole new data set to the music industry, and it's available for everyone, and it's very affordable, and it's very easy to access. So I try to do the presentations with these competitions and in general as tight as possible or so easy to understand. So it's like very unpretentious presentations. I'm just trying to, as easy as possible to explain what we do, and we focus on only one thing, and that's radio. And not as as other services, for example, as you mentioned, chart or whatever, who does a lot of different things. Like we are very focused on one thing, and we know that we're the best at it. Like there is basically no competition in this field for us at the moment, not in terms of pricing or in terms of coverage, and especially not in terms of user experience or user interface. So I think we're far ahead on that area. So yeah, just hope that will continue that way, but it's a big responsibility to to live up to, and now I just got information that I will be doing a panel at South by Southwest.
Nice.
About content recognition, and from the beginning, one of my main goals overall was to do a panel at South by Southwest, and now I'm so managed, within my first 8 months. So that's also, I have to put up some new goals for next year, I think. But I think we're very fortunate, and I think there's a lot of basically empathy for the company and the data that we try to create, because it can really help a lot of people.
Yeah, and basically, as you mentioned, maybe the reason why it's also very successful is that everybody was expecting somebody else to do it, but nobody was actually doing it, and you just came and you did it. So that's great. It's very helpful for a lot of different actors in the industry. So
yeah, I think that probably the industry would think that some of the service providers which are already there, for example Nielsen or Radio Monitor or BMAT or someone like that, would do this, or that a major or something would do it. But none of these have done it, and I guess that has a lot to do with both obviously the technology that we possess and they don't, but probably also something within the collections. I think I think that the majors are more or less only interested in understanding the radio airplays where they know that there is a collection that can be made. And maybe not so much in terms of how can we discover new trends, new markets, and emerging markets with upcoming artists, and use that data. But possibly that will change when all the artists have access to better data than they do, I guess.
Yeah, they will have also more info and maybe more power in discussing all of that with their majors as well, in their labels.
Yeah, I would think so.
Great. So, well, you have a new plugin coming up. You are talking to South by Southwest, and then you have all these big plans. Like, what do you think is going to happen this year? Like, what do you hope to achieve in 2018?
Well, I want to expand our coverage of stations as much as possible. I hope that we will reach, between 35 and 40,000 stations within the next year. And then I intend to roll out this radio promotion system, or as we call it, WARM RPS at the moment. And then we have multiple other features. For example, charts. I cannot see why there should only be, for example, a French
Yeah.
top 40 or top 100 airplay chart. Why shouldn't there be like a indie rock or just, I don't know, rock chart in the European Union, for example, or a Scandinavian hip hop chart, or
Yeah.
a, I don't know, Eastern European club chart or something like that, something that can actually help the upcoming part of the industry. Because if you take, for example, again in Denmark, if we have a top 40 airplay chart, the first 25, 30 spaces is taken by international artists.
Yeah.
And then we have the local heroes, and then there's not a lot of room for example, upcoming bands, and they have no chance of getting on this. Especially as these weighing systems are obviously based on the large stations, which again only plays the large music. So if we can make charts based on genres, but in bigger territories, much more of the independent industry or upcoming artists would be able to see themselves placed in some somewhere on a chart, even if it's in a specific genre. At the same time, we're actually working on building a college radio airplay chart system. It was a very long work, but we'll work on that in North America, so both in the US and Canada.
Okay.
So right now it's including 750 college and university radios in the US and Canada, and that's something that we are going to roll out very soon.
Nice.
Probably within the next month or so. And I think that would also help a lot of people, because what I see with these college radios is that they actually play very different music. There's no red thread in any of this. It's not like any of them are playing only the new music or the local pop or anything. It's very, very differentiated. And I think that information would be very valuable for especially the artists and bands and their labels, obviously.
Yeah, I guess a lot of opportunities. Okay. And how many people are you in the company to do all of that?
Yeah, so right now we are 6 people, and one is on maternity leave. So, but yeah, we have 5 people on the office at the office.
Wow, that's a lot of things to do with like a five persons.
I hired three guys who began here 1st of January, so
nice.
That was kind of a lot at one time.
yeah, a lot of integration, but then it's a lot of help, I guess.
I'll need an HR department.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for your time and your answers. If people are interested in knowing more about WARM or get in touch with you, well, first, I guess they can come on the 27th in Paris at the European Radio Show. But what's the best way to reach out to you if they need any?
Yeah, everyone is very welcome to send an email. It's js@warm.ninja. And,
nice.
I'm available 24/7 basically.
Okay.
Otherwise, find me on LinkedIn or something like that. I do my best to answer everything.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks a lot again. I will translate. Well, the article is going to be in French in the first place because of the timing for the show. And then I will translate it as well in English, I guess, so it can be used in other occasions, I'd say. And then I'll let you know if I use the audio version. I'll send everything to you that is in English. I will send it to you for you to check, and that's it.
That would be fantastic. And even the French version you can send, and then we'll just share it on the social medias and target it for the French-speaking countries in Canada. So.
Okay, perfect. Well, then I'll send you the French one as well.
Awesome.
All right, perfect. Well, Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, man.
Have a good end of the day. Good luck with
Thank you.
all your tasks, and speak soon then.
Thank you, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
Bye.